Well, I attended several universities and then I majored in drinking at a bar in the University of Tennessee called the Wild Mouse, and of course it was time to leave there. My grades weren't exactly up to par, and my lovingly fat friend Tuner was going to the University of Montana, and he took off his clothes at the girls' sorority house and was arrested for that. Of course, that was a major, you know, setback in those days. And we both came home for Christmas holidays, and we knew we had to get the hell out of there before our parents got the letters, you know, telling me that I was, you know, no longer welcome to the University of Tennessee due to my grades, and Tuna was no longer welcome at school because he was a sociopathic lunatic, and we decided to wait till after the holidays, and then we decided on California, and I said, let's go to California. He said, where? And I said, I don't know, we'll just go to Southern California. And we bought an old TR3, which is a Triumph, and probably most people don't even know what that is. It's a little sports car with snap-on windows, and we were so ignorant of the fact that we took the northern route in the winter through Chicago to get to California instead of the southern route, and we froze our ass off, but we kept drinking a case of beer every day, and so the beer was kept cold because the car was freezing, and we got to Belmont Shores, and it was like a whole different world compared to Boston, the University of Tennessee, or the University of Southern Mississippi, where I first went to. And in fact, it was a paradise. Unbeknown, we didn't even know what bikinis were, all right? And free will and existentialism, and California was consumed in it all. And the next thing that happened is we had to find a place to rent. A little house on the beach. Belmont Shores is a college town for Long Beach State students. It's like a little hamlet. It's I don't know what it's like there because I haven't been there in some time, but I still imagine it is. And we pulled up to this place that said for rent, and up on the balcony it was a townhouse, and there were 3 girls in bikinis hanging over the balcony, and which was phantasmagorical to us, especially, okay, with the breast hanging out and the whole deal. And they said, hey, you guys gonna rent here? And said, maybe. And I said, where are you from? And so I wasn't gonna tell her I was from Weymouth, Massachusetts, because nobody knew what the hell that was. And I said, Boston. And I said, what's your first name? And I said, George. And they said, Boston George, and that's how the name became. And at first it was okay, but now that I'm 73 years old, it's ridiculous, but that's okay. I have to live with it now. I'll die with it. And who knows, maybe I'll even have it printed on my tombstone. Goodbye, Boston George.
So you started selling weed during this time. Now, how big did your weed operation get?
I didn't start selling weed immediately. I went to Long Beach State, and I worked numerous jobs, working on offshore oil rigs and other jobs, offloading trucks, and I had no idea I didn't even smoke weed. And then eventually I learned what the value of weed was and the profit in it. I majored in marketing at the colleges I went to, and minored in psychology. And, you know, I still haven't realized how to psychoanalyze myself. That's a complex situation, but I realized the economics of the business, and selling small amounts of weed. What people made at that time, a college graduate made $10,500 a year, okay? And I realized that I could make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, which was a fortune in those days. And people don't even realize it then, but, and what happened is that I started selling ounces, and then from ounces I went to pounds, and a friend of mine was from the University of Massachusetts, came out from there to do graduate work, and he worked at the Mark Cochran's Hotel. He was in restaurant management, and on the way back home in the fall semester, he stopped at my house, and in Manhattan Beach I moved to Manhattan Beach by this time, and we had a punch bowl full of pot, and which was common practice in those days in Southern California, or any place in California. Pot was of no consequence. And he said, "Where did you get this? How much does it cost?" And I said, "I got it for $60 a kilo, da 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 da." And he said, "This sells for $300 a kilo at University of Massachusetts Amherst." And we both looked at each other, and I said, "All right, let's go into business." And so I started buying it, the marijuana in gross, and transporting it in motorhomes to the University of Massachusetts. And I began making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it was incredible. To me it was incredible, because I used to mow the lawn for my father for 25 cents. That was a big deal for him to pay me. And then it just transgressed forward into a bigger and better enterprise, and I had an idea that the business was boring, and I wanted to go to Mexico and get the pot directly from the Mexicans. And so we went, I saw the movie Night of the Iguana, and I love Liz Taylor and Richard Burton as actors and actors. And I said, let's go to Puerto Vallarta, and we went down there for like 10 days. And what happened there was we asked everybody, and we couldn't even find a joint, okay? We couldn't speak Spanish or whatever. And we were sitting in the spa called the Oceana Hotel in Puerto Vallarta, overlooking Banderas Bay and on the Malecon. And these guys told me, my buddies who were involved, the University of Massachusetts graduates or whatever, and we're through with this. We want to go back to the other way. This is ridiculous. And we were making good money. And my ego was smashed at that time. I didn't know what to say, and I said, okay. And like, through an act of serendipity, which has seemed to encompass most of my life, and a little yellow Volkswagen pulled up with flowers painted on it, and I got this platinum blonde, and she came into the bar and she said, "I know who you guys are." And I said, "Who the hell are you?" And she said, "I'm Linda, and I'm from California." And she said, "You guys ask just about everybody except the police chief for some pot." And she said, "I'm here to save you." I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "I happen to live with one of the biggest drug dealers in Mexico, and I'm going to take you over there now." And so she took me over there, and he said, "What can you do for me?" Of course. And I said, "Well, I can transport your pot to the United States and sell it." And of course, I really didn't know if I could transport it or not. And he said, "How are you going to do that?" I said, "Through airplanes." And he said, "Okay. When you come with an airplane, I'll fix it up so you can do it, and we'll work it just right, and it'll be perfect, all right? Now front you the pot." And immediately when we left Danny Partito was his name, we left the hotel, and we went back to our rooms at another hotel, and my friends from the University of Massachusetts said, "This is incredible, you're crazy, you don't even know how to fly a plane." And I said, "I'll learn how to fly a plane and we'll steal one." And of course they were completely skeptical about the whole thing. And in the end, we pulled it off and we did the first load, and I realized that I wasn't the consummate pilot of the universe and that I better find a better pilot, all right, because I didn't have instrument rating, which means that after dark you can't fly a plane, okay? And so I hired better pilots and bigger planes, and it grew into an empire.
When you look at your weed operation as a whole, like how many millions of dollars do you think you made?
In the weed operation, probably 50 million, which at that time was a lot of money.
Right, 50 million back then is like, what, maybe 200 million today?
No, probably 500 million.
Okay, $500 million. So you made $500 million off marijuana.
Right.
So then you ended up getting busted for marijuana.
Yes, in Chicago. And
Okay.
I went to Cook County Jail for a couple of hours, and I bonded out, and that night I caught a commercial flight back to LA, and the next day I was flying another small plane down to Mexico to get another load.
Now, what led up to you actually doing hard prison time for marijuana?
Hard prison time, what happened is that I jumped bail, and it wasn't exactly hard prison time. It was in Danbury, Connecticut. It was a federal prison, and it was, I guess you could call it a medium-low security prison, and it was full of mob guys that had been in the penitentiaries or whatever, and they filtered down. And another act of serendipity, when I first went into the reception dorm, was where they put you before they assign you to another dormitory, okay, where you're gonna stay for a long time. I actually got a 5-year sentence, and at that time you did 1/3 and you got out on parole, 20 months. So it wasn't, the mandatory sentencing was a long way from taking effect until then. And actually it wasn't a hard prison time. I taught school there, and they assigned me to, ironically, a bunkmate called Carl Slater from Columbia. And Carlos was in there for stealing cars and shipping them to South America. All right, not cocaine. But yet, he asked me, what am I doing here? And I told him I was flying pot out of Mexico, da, 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 da. And he said, do you know anything about cocaine? And I didn't. And he said, it costs $60,000 a kilo. Then the wheels in my head began to spin like, at high velocity. And I said, you know what? I know how to get that out of there. And that's how it all began with him. And it was another act of serendipity. And we waited till we got out, and then we went into business. And, then I climbed aboard the starship to hell.
So Carlos Slater, he was part of the Medellin cartel.
At that time, there wasn't any Medellin cartel. There was just Carl Slater and I, and who later on I met, Pablo Escobar and a bunch of other people who didn't have a market in the United States, a major market, or a major transportation system. And when it all culminated and came together, then, like any business in the world, it became a cartel. Like the oil cartel, the banking cartels, whatever. It was just a name, all right? And a group of people who were intent on profit, and pure profit, would stop at nothing to get it.
So how much did you actually deal with Pablo Escobar back then?
I had only business meetings with him, and I don't know if you can equate it in hours or minutes or moments or whatever, but each moment was an intensity unto itself, and it may have seemed like days a moment with him. And I didn't stay there very long. I just